All right, we're back. Um, really great guests today. Vendor Finance. Gents, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, thanks for having us.
Yeah, anytime. I mean, I've been hounding you guys to get some content out around the product. Did a really big deep dive into Arbitrum. Came up with some gems, and obviously you guys were on that list as well. So it'd be great to get stuck into the protocol a little bit here. And why don't we start with just some kind of basic intros and your kind of day-to-days at Vendor?
Sure. And yeah, we're glad you found us. So my name is Yeti Wop, and I handle like business development, including partnerships. I do a little community, some marketing. So anything really related not to code, I have a hand in. And then I'll hand that off to Lauren.
Nice. Yep. So I'm Lauren. I primarily do the web development for vendor finance. I've helped a bit with the contracts just for like reviewing, but have not like written any contracts that have been deployed. But yeah, so primarily web development. Day to day, it's usually just like bug fixing, just staring at our Discord to see if anyone's reported any bugs or issues that they've come out or that they found. But yeah, thanks for having us on again.
Yeah, very welcome. Very welcome. Anything to kind of shed light on. I just find that this space is just absolutely batshit crazy, but it's also filled with like really great people as well. So anything to kind of showcase these cool products that are coming to the forefront. So yeah, more than welcome to come on whenever. Not a lot of people like to kind of spend time with me and the couple of other lads who jump on here with us. So you can come back on whenever.
Well, we definitely appreciate the invite, so thank you.
Yeah.
So I know because I've been doing some my own research, but what as a high level for people who are going to be listening to this in the near future, what is vendor finance?
Yeah, so vendor finance is a borrowing and lending platform. And the difference is that our lenders get to choose all their own terms. So you choose the interest rate you want to lend at and the amount of time you want to lend at. So you could pick a 1 month time period that you want to lend. And there's also no liquidations for borrowers. That being said, there are defaults. So default is where a borrower does not pay back in the time allotted. So at the time of expiry, if they don't repay, they default, and all of the collateral goes to the lender. So no token is ever sold due to forced liquidations from price fluctuation in the market. It's just dependent on if you pay back on time or not. But that's the main differences between us and like traditional lending and borrowing platforms. But yeah, the cool thing is that, like I said, lenders set all their own terms so they can follow their own risk profile and risk parameters. And we could show that in a screen share a little later on. Borrowers, they know what their terms are, so they're agreeing to that. Again, fixed rates, no liquidations for borrowers, which is great. They can sleep at night knowing they're not going to get liquidated while they're sleeping and wake up to less money. But yeah, those are the main differences between us and a normal market.
All right. Nice. So I suppose that because you can kind of set your own rates and all your own parameters, I suppose that'll probably create its own kind of free market of kind of demand. If this is obviously more beneficial rates, then those kind of pools are going to get quickly used as opposed to others. So is there kind of like a I suppose it might be easier just to kind of bring it up on a screen share if we can do that, just to kind of so we can kind of talk through these points. But that was what I found quite an interesting aspect of the protocol in and of itself, that the kind of market will determine what is an attractive rate, and I suppose that'll be completely variable depending on what's happening in the wider market at that point in time as well. But yeah, let's take a look, because I think it's one of those protocols where it's really well designed, and the UI and UX just make an awful lot more sense when it's in front of people's faces, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Let me pull up my screen and then we could go through it. And like you said, it is like once you see it, it's it makes a lot more sense. Just because it's not your traditional borrow from Aave, and then it's a little more involved, but it's pretty simple once you see it. Let me
And
just
you were spot on the like the competitive aspect, and or like how the market will kind of fill certain roles, because something we've talked about internally a lot is that since lenders get to set pretty much all their own terms, they can look at Aave, they can look at Compound and see like how much are people paying to borrow this asset. And so lenders can create a pool that either matches those parameters on the traditional lending services, or they can make one that they feel is better, and that's totally up to them. So it gives them a lot of flexibility in that way.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually. Right. So what are we looking at here? Let's go for it.
For sure. So this is where you kind of land when you come to our website, vendor.finance. So this page would be where you would come as a borrower, and you can just see all these. We have a few pools up right now. So you could borrow from any of these pools. And like it says right here, deposit CM Umami, borrow USDC, deposit wrapped ETH, borrow DAI. So this is just for the borrowers, this page. And then, but let me go to where a lender would go, because it might make more sense going from that flow first. So a lender would go to create pool, and this is where you create your lending pool. So on this side, you could see there's a bunch of different stuff you could select. It might be overwhelming to look at first, but it's pretty simple. So you would select the collateral token you want to accept. And this is our list right now. So we will be adding more. We want to support basically every Chainlink supported token, but in the future, it will be permissionless. So you could add any token you want, really, any ERC20 token. So right now, I'll choose Umami as the collateral. Actually, we'll choose CM Umami, which is an interest-bearing token, actually. And then you would select your lend token. So that's the token you want to lend out for receiving that collateral. So we'll pick USDC. So now what this means is every time someone deposits CM Umami, you're lending out that USDC. And now we have a lend ratio that you choose. And this is just the amount of lend token, which is USDC in this case, is lent out per 1 unit of collateral. So if you picked 50%, you'd be lending out 10 USDC for every 1 CM Umami deposited. And you could, there's little quick pre-fill options, but you could also set it to the price of Umami is $21 right now. So you could put 15. So you'd lend out 15 USDC for depositing 1 Umami. So we made that completely customizable. You can do whatever you want, really. And then you choose your expiry. And the expiry is when the borrower needs to repay by. So you can choose any date. We recommend usually like a month-long date, month or two, just because you don't know how the market's going to react. So we'll choose this date. So that's great. So you have your collateral token set, your lend token set, your lend ratio, and your expiry. And the next thing, probably one of the more important things, is your interest rate that you're going to be charging. So you can put it out whatever you want. So we could do a 10% interest rate or 1%. Now this is annualized, so this isn't for the one term. This would be 1% annualized, or APR. And then
I can kind of see people getting really extreme with their lend ratios, and that their APRs here.
Yeah. So
And creating some crazy lending and borrowing games.
yeah,
Yep.
so for example, if say CM Umami is $21 basically, if you set the lend ratio to 19, right? That's pretty close to, you're getting almost 1-to-1, right? So you could set the interest, since you're giving out so much, you could set the interest rate to 20% maybe, because you're giving out so much, you could charge a higher premium or interest rate. And also, borrowers tend to pay a little bit more in interest knowing that they're never going to be liquidated. So it's kind of, you pay for that protection too. Yeah,
Interesting.
those are the main configurations that a lender will choose and set up, and it's completely customizable for them. So they're setting, like I said in the beginning, they're setting all their own parameters and all their own terms. So it's pretty good for the lender since it's what they want.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to point out is the allow under collateralized borrowing toggle that we have.
Right.
For most cases, this wouldn't be useful. Or maybe I don't want to say most cases, but so far we have not seen a ton of use out of it. But it just allows for lenders to create under collateralized pools. In crypto, that's kind of scary because you don't know who you're lending to, obviously. So to kind of mitigate this, we've added this, like right under that, there's this borrowers input where you can like whitelist a list of borrowers that are allowed to borrow. So this allows for under collateralized lending if you like personally know the person you want to lend to, or maybe it's someone who's popular in the space and they have like reputation on the line. You may be willing to lend them an under collateralized loan because you know that you have like some amount of external leverage over them.
And this
Or
could also
you
be used-
could bring a DAO treasury in there, or
Yeah, exactly.
there's all sorts of weird and wonderful ways you can bring that in.
Yeah. So if you're one DAO with a huge treasury and you're in close relations with another DAO and you collaborate with them a lot and they need a little bit of funding, you could do a DAO to DAO private pool, and it could be under collateralized. So yeah, that's a great use case for it.
This is really interesting because you can even start getting into kind of like liquidity as a service, using this as a kind of way to facilitate that, or even if there was assets that idle in someone's treasury that another treasury could utilize for a kind of bribing mechanism or bribing model that epoch or something like that. That's
That's a super
that's really
interesting
interesting. Yeah. Oh god. We're just opening a can of worms now, but yeah.
that's the thing with vendor. It's so flexible. Like there's so many different like use cases it has. It's not just a lending borrowing platform. You can kind of facilitate money to people if you want. It's just completely customizable.
Yeah. Nice. Fascinating. That's just that under collateralized, and then effectively whitelisting the specialized addresses. That's just so simple but so effective.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. You're just whitelisting specific addresses. And you could do this where it says address is separated by commas. You could put 5 addresses in there, or 1. So it's as many as you want.
Nice. So because this is all kind of, it's extremely isolated, really peer to peer. And that's how you guys can go ahead and then allow more exotic collateral types, if I'm not mistaken, just because the risk is isolated, and if one bad, for lack of a better word, shitcoin was to be not liquidated, but what's the phrase you guys use?
Oh, default.
Default, yeah. So if like one like really bad token was the default, it doesn't upset the rest of the lending and borrowing that's going on the platform.
Exactly. Yeah, it's completely isolated. And like you said, this is really good for like newer tokens that aren't on other lending or borrowing platforms because, for example, like to be on APE, there's like they undergo a lot of risk management, and not many tokens can get on there, or Compound or just your regular markets. So yeah, a project can just come to us, ask for their token to be listed, and we can generally get that up pretty fast. And like you said, it's isolated, so it doesn't affect any other markets. But yeah, this is great for newer projects, more illiquid tokens, and it can almost be, so say a project, they have a token, it's not listed on any other markets. They could list on Vendor, and they can almost use it as a buyback mechanism. So if people do default on them, they're kind of getting their own token back anyway. So it kind of protects their token from being dumped on the market if it was in their traditional borrowing and lending platform, where it would just be sold on the market, and then it could create a cascading liquidation. This kind of protects from that.
So we've got the CM umami there. Would it? I'm just kind of thinking like on the spot here, but would it be possible for kind of, I don't know, like LP positions, or maybe like further yield bearing kind of positions? Just maybe thinking out loud again with like GLP and things like that.
Yeah, totally. We can support any standard ERC20 token as long as it's not a rebasing token. It'll work on Vendor. So yeah, we can support Uniswap LP tokens, Curve LP tokens. Any interest-bearing token that has like a wrapper, or like I said, non-rebasing. But yeah, we could support any of those.
Wow. What about more NFT token standards? Is that a bit wacky or a bit wild?
That's pretty interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, that's something we've gotten a few requests for, and Vendor model actually fits pretty perfect with NFTs, right? It's basically the same thing as the ERC20 tokens, just where the collateral will be an NFT. It's something we're actually working on now. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility in the future.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad we prized that one out here, because that was just a complete shot in the dark.
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into it just because we're still working on it. But yeah, I guess that's a little alpha if you want.
Can't leak the alpha yet.
We
can cut that if you need us to cut it.
But yeah, it's awesome because I know there's been some other NFT lending platforms, but again, borrow will never be liquidated, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and they're a lot more. I don't know why this is, but they're a lot more gated, I think, similar to like how you were saying with kind of Aves. There's a long kind of drawn out arduous process. It's usually like a protocol, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type thing. There's a few on Ethereum like that as well, and just the whole permissionless nature of Vendor is just it's just great. But why in your opinion, up to now, have we never seen like a really isolated lending market really pick up and run with itself? Do you know what I mean? Like, we've obviously had the Aves and the comp of the world. Is it have you got any kind of thoughts around that?
Well, we've seen some, for example, this might not be isolated, but it is more of a permissionless way. We saw Rari do their fuse pools. Now that wasn't isolated, so that created a lot of issues for them with liquid tokens, because the whole pool is affected by one token. But that was a cool way to introduce almost permissionless lending for any token, lending and borrowing. That's one we saw. There's a few other protocols working on similar to what Vendor is doing, but a little different. For example, Miso Finance, they're doing something in the realms of vendor, but yeah, there's a few, but none of them have taken off like crazy yet. I think it's just more that it's very different from the traditional AVE compound. So I think it requires a little bit of education and just to get like why it's so beneficial to both the lender and borrower. But I think it's just different. I think we'll see a huge rise in vendor finance and vendor type platforms.
Yeah, if I could also say, just to bounce off of that, like around the time that we started working on vendor, there were like, yeah, there are several projects that have not the same idea, obviously, but like very similar, um, similar ideas of like making lending like this. So it's kind of it's relatively new, since we've just been using like Aave and like compound forks, indefinitely for almost a year now. Um, so yeah, people are just maybe not used to seeing a different kind of lending and borrowing or money market. Um, but the fact that we're seeing so many like just spin up in the last few months means that, or at least to me, it makes me feel that we're heading in that direction. Definitely, where there are going to be more projects with similar ideas because they see the value. Both lenders and borrowers see the potential value for this. So yeah, it's just I feel like it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree on massively. Even just based down to the like I've been following and participating in because I always really like to try out these kind of new innovative protocols that come around, and I think it's for anyone who's kind of listening. I think that's how you stumble upon the gems. Like I don't get people who can base an investment or use a product based off solely off what someone else says. I think if you just try enough stuff, like particularly on the likes of Arbitrum and places like that, where it's relatively effective to just go and try stuff. So I was been messing around with the likes of like SudoSwap and things over the past couple of months, and people once they're given the tools to do something, they just find crazy and innovative ways to use these kind of protocols like yourselves, and I can kind of guarantee it's going to happen. Whether it comes from retail participants or more kind of experienced actors or DAOs or treasuries, that give people the tools and they'll find like interesting ways to use it. And I think that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's also why we chose to launch on Arbitrum. It's cheap to use and it's more user friendly. You don't need as much capital as you would on ETH mainnet. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. You can experiment and not feel like you're spending so much money on gas just to do something. So it really opens up the environment for like a lot of different, I guess, if you want to say experiments or just new things that people could just go and try without having to take a huge dent in their wallet. But yeah, it definitely opens up a lot of creativity.
So is this more of the dashboard area for what you might have created a pool or you might have
Right.
borrowed from a pool?
Yeah, I could. So yeah, we went over creating a pool as a lender. Choose all your parameters, and then you just deploy your pool. And then once you deployed your pool, you'll see it show up on the borrow page, and this is where borrowers come to just borrow.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we'll stick with the CM Umami example. So right now, someone had created a pool, and there's 7,000 USDC available to borrow. So as a borrower, you would just click into that pool, and then if you have this collateral, you just type in, one CM Umami, and you'd get 10 USDC, and you just borrow. And then right here, it lays out all the terms. So the expiry you need to pay by, the LTV, the current LTV, but we have it set. So the mint ratio, when a lender sets it, is actually fixed. So throughout the whole term, as long as you're depositing one CM Umami, you're going to get $10. the LTV just fluctuates due to the price, but you'll always be getting that $10, and then your term fee. So there's a transaction review of how much of a loan you're getting, the interest that'll be due at the end of the period, and your total. So you just deposit your collateral, and there'll be a button here that says borrow, and then you just borrow. And then all you got to do is pay back by the expiry, and you'll get your collateral back. So that's, as a borrower, it's pretty simple. You just go to the screen and borrow.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, particularly for the likes of Umami and Umami holders, where this is, this is relatively the early days of the beginnings of that protocol. But everyone knows there's an awful lot of shiny and attractive things that happen in this space all day, every day. We also know the attention span of some people, but if they were to utilize your protocol in this way, where they could deposit an X amount of Umami, or even the yield bearing Umami in there, borrow some US dollars, remove that kind of opportunity cost to go and play around in the market, because they might want to be long-term holders, and probably having infrastructure like this in a permissionless manner for protocols is great, because you don't get someone selling immediately when they want to go and try the latest and greatest T5 protocol, the nice shiny shitcoin that's just came onto the market.
Right.
But with this, being able to get access to the capital permissionlessly for those kind of tokens, I think it's really, really good, really, really powerful for those early stage projects as well.
For sure. And with the interest bearing tokens, I think CM Umami is earning around 10% right now. Don't quote me on it, but I think that's what it's earning right now. So if, say, the APR here is 17%, which is a little bit high, but you're earning 10% in the background, so your effective interest rate is really only 7%. So for other interest bearing tokens, you could, or this one, if the interest rate is, say, 5%, then you're technically getting a free loan since you're earning in the background. So it's interest bearing tokens can be definitely very beneficial to the borrower, because you could get a free loan basically.
Yeah, and also you were absolutely right about like how there really are. It feels like there are a million projects launching every day, and it's like physically and monetarily, fiscally impossible to invest in all of them. So like this kind of project gives either large token holders or DAOs or large projects, it gives them the ability to give borrowers the ability to leverage their assets and play around with more with different projects and more projects.
Yeah, I'm just trying to run through some kind of more degenerate examples of what you could do there. You could take out a high LTV of USDC and buy some more CMU Umami, depending on the epochs.
Yeah, you could leverage. You could definitely do some leverage on here as well by doing what you said.
My brain just goes that way every time I see something interesting like this.
Yeah, we've seen a few
Can't help
people.
myself.
We just had a few pools expire. Actually, we had a CRV pool and a ETH pool that just expired. That had CRV had, I think, $10,000 borrowed, and I think the ETH pool had around $25,000 borrowed. And we did see some people leveraging up in those pools. So it's pretty interesting to see what users think about and what they're doing. So it's definitely something we've kept in mind with the people wanting to take leverage.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So yeah, what happens with the default? Is there any way to kind of track, or is it like a really simple bird's eye view of, how long? All right, so this lent tab on my pools, or borrow tab, and that's going to tell you like a basic, really, really plain and simple there. That's
Yeah. So with defaults, like I said, you only default as a borrower if you don't repay on time, and that's totally up to the borrower. Like I said, you're never forced liquidated. Just prepay by the expiry, and you get your collateral back. but
Mhm.
that could be working out in the favor of the borrower because your loan amount could be more than your collateral amount at the time of expiry. And so you might want to default because your loan is greater than your collateral. So what's the point of paying back, right? So you can default if you want. So you have that option. It's kind of a hedge against the market. But yeah, so as the lender, you're getting all that defaulted collateral. And since you already chose all your own risk parameters, you should be okay with getting that collateral at that price, basically. So you kind of, as a lender, you set basically a limit order on that collateral.
And what I think we touched upon this previously when we just had a brief chat about trying to get you guys on. What was the rollover feature again?
Right. So the rollover feature, we added that in to kind of make it feel like an AVE or compound where you have this perpetual loan, right? As long as you have a good health factor or LTV, you don't get liquidated. So we implemented a rollover, which kind of mimics that. A lender can create a rollover pool. And a rollover pool is just a regular pool that you would create. It just has a further expiry date than the current pool. So, for example, let's go back to here. So this pool expires November 2nd, right? So this lender can then create a pool for December 2nd as well. Now, what that does is that allows a borrower to roll over into that December 2nd pool, and it basically extends their loan. So it transfers their debt to a further out expiry. And as a borrower, you would just go select your current pool and then you would click the rollover tab. And if there's any pools available to roll over into, it'll show that right here. And then you just roll over into that pool. So you just extend your repayment due date.
And that's strictly like for like pairs. I think it would get really complicated if it was going into other pools.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, so specifically, you can only right now you can only roll over into pools that have the same pair as well as the same deployer. So the deployer would have to deploy a new pool with the same pair, and then that would be available for rollover. But we're also working on um, a solution for like where you can roll over into any pool with the same pair. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same deployer. That would open up a lot of options for people to roll over and extend their loans.
Yeah, that could be great. Jeez. Well, if you haven't guessed already, I love it. So are we still in like a beta phase, or what where are we at with kind of go to market and all that kind of interesting stuff?
Yeah, so we're launched on Arbitrum. We've been taking it slow just to see how the first few expiries went with repaying the lenders, collecting their interest and collateral, and those all seem to went very smoothly. So we are going to continue to add more collaterals and try to have more partnerships with DAOs so they can lend directly out of their treasuries. So that's our strategy right now, is talk to more partners, get more integrations, and list more tokens. So there's a bigger market.
Absolutely. I know people will kill me if I don't ask this, but is there any kind of plans to tokenize, or is there anything we can talk about with regards to that?
You want to take this one, Lauren?
Yeah, sure. So like at the moment, we don't have huge incentives to make a token. Right now, we're pretty much focused on like making the product and seeing if we can find like a good product market fit. I feel like a lot of the times a token may distract developers or like just distract the team in general. because like really no matter what happens, the token's going to go where the token wants to go. It depends on like the buyers and sellers. So that kind of external energy may like be distracting. But it is like in the back of our minds. It is something we think about pretty often. There are like if we do end up making a token, which I guess we probably will. We want it to have like actual value, not just be like a token to like make us or make other people rich. It's really just like a token that has actual value that does something with the project.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As you say, particularly at this time in the market, like as much as we wouldn't like to admit it, it's if you were truly strategizing around the token, it'd be a bit criminal to launch whilst everything's so kind of dead and flat, but it can probably be utilized better once everyone knows if the world's going to implode or not.
Right. Yeah.
And the more a product gets used without a token, the better. But also,
100%. Yeah.
Once we see there's a product market fit, it's used a lot. We'll have a better idea of what a token could be utilized for, and basically the use case of a token. So yeah, like Lorem said, we didn't want to just launch a token to incentivize people to borrow and lend, and then farm the token and dump it, and then you have a bunch of angry holders, right?
Yeah. Or what's even worse is when everyone knows there's going to be a token, so they only use the protocol for like speculating on an airdrop or something like that, and then never use it again. So you guys don't get anything out of it. The token holders don't get anything out of it.
Hey, if people want to do that, then they're still using our product without the token, right? And they might like
it. Okay. Is there anything I might have missed that I might know about it?
Let's see. Just some more stuff on the UI, I guess. If we have some pool stats, so for here you can check your pool stats as a lender, and you can see all the funds deposited, funds lent out. So basically just your average stats for being a lender, and then we have the same for a borrower.
We also have the oh, you got it. I was gonna say the update. Okay, yeah. So we also have like update fee rate and like pause and pause borrowing. So lenders have full discretion on if the pool is able to be borrowed from. So at any point the lender can pause the pool. So no other or they can pause borrowing. So no other borrowers can happen. But anyone who's still in the pool is free to repay whenever they want, or I guess before expiry. But like even if the pool is paused, borrowers can still repay. They just can't reborrow, or there can't be any new borrows. And then we have update fee rate, which allows lenders to update their fee rate for the pool. So like if like back to the competitive nature of it, if there are a lot of pools that you feel are much better than yours for some reason, or maybe you're not getting as much borrowing as you think you should be, you're as a lender, you're free to modify the parameters and see if you can like make the pool more attractive.
Is that only for borrowers who come in post the update?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyone who borrowed before you updated the fee rate, they maintain their previous rate, and then new borrowers will get the new rate. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just going to say,
so you can't
incentivizing at 0.1%.
You can't just change the prior borrower's interest rate. Only new entrants into the
pool. Is there any way to build a plugin for that repayment due date that plugs into like a Google Calendar on that little on the three dots? Because I'm an idiot and I've got that much going on. I just get distracted.
Yeah, that's definitely something we've talked about. I don't want to spoil anything, but we have talked with like a few protocols, or at least one protocol that like handles on-chain like notifications. So we're gonna look into that and see like how we can help people, or just like notify people of their loans, because that is like an obvious problem. This is very different than traditional lending where you can just borrow indefinitely. So yeah, here we have an expiry, so you need to pay before that date. So yeah, it makes sense to have some kind of notification or something to let you know. But yeah, the first step would be like a Google Calendar link or something like that.
No. Again, I love it. I'm going to start using it and putting some test pools up and see what goes on.
And also,
I just think it's great.
Just to show, we have this little price chart. So this basically shows you the blue line is where the collateral's current price is, and that red line that you see is the mint ratio. So as a lender, you always want that blue line to be above that red line by expiry. Otherwise, people may default. And you could also see that on the create pool page as well. So that just helps you kind of determine, what mint ratio or lend ratio to set.
Yeah, guys, that was great.
But yeah, that's
I love it.
That's
We're gonna. I think we'll get it covered. I think we'll get it covered in an article. Maybe a couple of weeks, but yeah, I think it's just nice to see kind of refreshing stuff come onto the market instead of just like a pool 2 decks and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks again for joining me. Yeah, as I say, if you need anything from us to kind of help out with getting the word out, just say, we'll help. We're always happy to help projects that are doing interesting stuff, as opposed to the kind of 99 of a million scam projects that come into our DMs asking for content and stuff. So yeah, we're more than happy to help out. But yeah, is there anything final we might have missed before we turn off?
I think on my end we covered almost everything. Covered some alpha. Went over the product. So I think covered everything. Anything else, Norm, that you might add?
No, I think we covered everything. I think maybe just a call to action. Yeah, if you're interested in just using the project, please just try it out and experiment. It's on Arbitrum, so it's extremely cheap to use. You can make mistakes and it'll be okay for the most part. But yeah, feel free to try out the app. That's all I have.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
if any lenders or borrowers have any questions, hop in our Discord, ask us questions. We're always there to help out. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get all that information where you find you guys in the description and things. We'll try and get this up in the next 48 hours or so. But yeah, guys, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And best of luck. And as I say, if there's anything we can help with, just ask and kind of consider it done.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks, everyone.